I fasted for 68 hours. I began on Sunday. My last real meal was at 6 p.m. and then I ate omega-3s in the evening. This means I was already quite fasted when I then was on Monday. Day 1. I had almost no hunger since I also overate a little bit on Sunday. In the evening I was at the gym and I think I may have lifted slightly less than usual. Day 2 also went fine, only slight hunger now and then. And now, in this night, I actually experienced a little bit of more hunger, not that much, still, it is quite acceptable, I would say. But today, as of Wednesday, I am beginning to get more and more hungry again. Which is weird, because normally it trades off. So now I will be breaking my fast. It is now 2 p.m., which means I will begin a 2-hour eating window, maybe it's even 4 hours. So I count this then as 2 eating windows. The plan is to eat the salad at 2, so now, and then to eat the full meal or a little bit less of a full meal because of the multi-day fast in or at 3 p.m. How much time did I spend in the different fasting zones? So these are personalized fasting zones in the fasting app Zero, and now let's see how much time I spent in these. Very conveniently in this app, there is now additional information on the workouts you did. You can import them from Google Fit. I actually track my workouts with Samsung Health, and then with Health Sync, I sync them to Google Fit. So this means now, in addition to the already personalized fasting zones, which are accommodated to your weight and your height and so on, and also your diet. So there is a short quiz at which you can check what your weight is, but you can also sync the weight either from Google Fit again, or even type it in manually. But I again sync it from Google Fit, which is previously in Samsung Health, and it is synced to Samsung Health by my scale, which all is happening automatically, which is very nice in combination with the body fat and the other measurements. So now what we have in here is I spent anabolic 4 hours. This is very efficient. Then I spent catabolic the next 12 hours. Then I spent fat burning, so fat burning without ketosis, just normal fat burning. I spent 8 hours, which is the standard length. Oh no, it's actually much less because I am usually eating low carb. It's 6 hours and 46 minutes. The catabolic time is also reduced. It's 8 hours and 49 minutes, and the anabolic time was only 3 hours and 11 minutes. And then I spent in ketosis, 48 hours is the standard, and I only spent 45 hours in ketosis until I switched to deep ketosis, which then results in me being in the final zone of deep ketosis. It ends with my fast, and it's ongoing after 0. So, well, it seems like I didn't spend any time in 12 hours. My length would be, so after 35 hours, I spent time in ketosis, but I only spent 12 hours in ketosis. And then I actually went to deep ketosis, I think, or I didn't. Maybe I didn't. It's not calculated yet, it seems, so therefore I just end the fast. So now we are in the main window, and then I just click on complete the fast here. And now it says, I could also enter now my fasting breaker. It would be very nice if it's synced. So I track my meals with MyFitnessPal, and these meals are synced to Samsung Health, and these calories and meals are again synced to Google Fit. But it seems that Zero fasting now cannot pick up the calories because there is only let's say you have a lot of different inputs for one given meal in MyFitnessPal. So it's a banana, it's an apple, and so on. What is only transferred to Samsung Health, and this is still a little bit sad that the integration is not better, is all of the macronutrients of basically the combined meal. So this means you don't have an actual meal, you just have the micro and macronutrients of a specific given overall meal. So it's basically the average of all the meal. So now I have 68 hours and 12 minutes, which I will reduce down to 68 hours because I think it's just simpler and it is easier to think about if you think about it full hours, and let's see now how much time I spent in deep ketosis. It was 14 hours, which is very nice, I guess. So this means I probably also produced a considerable amount of ketones in this time. And actually now, within this app, I realized yesterday, so this app is developing and developing. There is only one major downside. It is very laggy, very laggy and buggy. So if you want to just randomly put in your fasting hours, then often this results in you putting in your fasting hours and typing them again and again and again in, because it just doesn't take the time. And this is just very sad, because otherwise this is one of the best apps, I guess, I am using in terms of health. It almost is similar to Samsung Health, I would guess. So for fasting, it's just the best app out there, hands down the best app out there. And well, let's see actually, what did I want to show you? Yeah, the trends. There is this, what is the trend I wanted to show you? This trend that is based on basically an algorithmic estimation of how much your glucose actually is, because most people don't measure their glucose. So there you have an estimation of what your glucose levels probably will look like, depending also on what you ate. So now, again, it would be even more useful if you had the exact thing you ate in there, and not just the thing that is transferred to Google Fit and also Samsung Health from MyFitnessPal. So to MyFitnessPal and also Samsung Health, make this integration just better, or maybe to Zero Fasting, just maybe connect directly to MyFitnessPal even. So there is also now something called ketone levels, and this is also very interesting, because what we now can actually see is, without measuring my ketone levels, there is an estimation on what my ketone levels actually will look like or looked like. So this means now I have approximately 100, it seems like I had yesterday in, I actually can't quite understand it. It says that I had 140 millimoles per liter, and well, that was the peak yesterday. I don't know why it went down today. Oh no, this is actually not as of today. For some reason, it's the month. Let's see if the week is updating. This is now what the current week looks like. And since I do not track my ketone levels anywhere, and it is, well, there is also no uptick whatsoever in the ketone levels. Probably because maybe I am on low carb anyway, so therefore the ketone levels are not that much higher in fasting, but I don't really know. It doesn't really make sense. So it would make sense that the ketone levels probably are at least a little bit higher in fasting. So therefore, well, at least it's a good, nice thing. This is actually the trend feature. You can click on and off here. If you click on here, well, now it just moved to my home screen. But it is basically just an estimation, I guess. So now I will break finally the fast. Actually, in an attempt to reduce my body fat, I fasted also on Saturday. I basically only ate on Sunday, and before I also tried to reduce my calories a little bit. I just find it much easier to either say that I eat on a given day, which is also why I kind of made up the system of eating once a day. Of course, I didn't make it up, but I modified it for my personal use, because I know people already invented it before me, I guess. I didn't invent it at all. So what I'm saying is, I think it is easier on the mind, at least on my mind, if I make the decision of either eating on a given day or not eating. And I also realized again that it just might make sense to have a very, very simple rule. And this rule goes as follows. Your rule in terms of your weight should not be based on your weight, because your weight is not really a good measurement of you, basically. Because you could have much more muscle mass, for example, compared to the average person, and this is also why the BMI is not a good measurement, because people who have very high muscle mass and maybe very low fat mass, this is just not represented in the BMI. So people with bodybuilders, for example, would have a very high BMI, and they would be considered obese in terms of the BMI, but of course they aren't. They are much healthier, usually, compared to somebody who is just fat. So now, the main metric I'm currently using is body fat. And I now realized, so I have a scale. And this scale has an athlete mode, which actually has or offers slightly lower body fat values on a given fixed input from you weighing in on the scale. And I had it on athlete mode all the time. The problem is just now that the athlete mode is probably not working for me anymore because my body fat level is just too high. So my body fat percentage is just too high for this mode to work properly. And it also means that compared to all the other scales out there, which are working in normal mode, it is just 3% lower in body fat usually. So what this resulted in is that my view was kind of distorted in terms of on which level of body fat I actually am. So if I thought I was on 12%, for example, or on 12.5%, this was actually not true, because I had to basically get the athlete mode percentage from the scale and then actually add 2%, 3%, 5% maybe, and this actually is not really accurate, and it is also not really consistent because I just don't have a value. This also now means my historic body fat data, which is stored in Samsung Health, transferred via FeelFit, the app that connects to my scale, is not accurate anymore. So therefore, yesterday I switched to normal mode. I'm actually at 15%. And this is also what this watch measured. And now I think it made sense to finally switch. And now, therefore, I am realizing that that fasting the last days was probably something that was useful. Final conclusions. You really want to be aware and also avoid refeeding syndrome. This is a syndrome that occurs because the body is used to fat burning now after 2 days and doesn't want it. It's not that the body doesn't want to eat, it's just the body is not really prepared to eat. So therefore, having something like a salad and then actually waiting for 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours until you have your major meal. If it's 1 meal a day, probably 2,000 calories, which, depending on your macronutrient ratio, will spike your insulin quite a bit. Also depending on how much carbs are in there. And another final conclusion is the following. I am not a nutritionist, I am not a medical doctor of any kind, and therefore keep in mind that for doing such experiments on yourself, you actually want to really research it and also basically seek out the advice of a medical professional, ideally at least.